Okay, so I think we're live. It is 1 o'clock exactly. That's amazing. It's early Saturday morning, 2/3/2024. And I'm sorry I'm a little late, but lately I've been watching. I don't know if anybody watches or ever seen Mystery Science Theater, but they have this marathon going on YouTube. And I've always been a huge Mystery Science Theater fan, and I got carried away with one of the things. Anyways, all right, I'll play my intro and I'll be right back to start this thing. Hope everybody's having a good week. Okay, so that's that. First thing we're going to do, we're going to try to go over some of the latest in the Delphi stuff, and I may go over the map that I made. I don't know, it seems like forever ago now of the timeline of events and all of that stuff. And all right, so let's. I'm going to play this one first. This came out 2 days ago. We have some more bickering going back and forth between the lawyer camps. But this week coming out, they had the lawyers that were appointed after Judge Gall removed the other lawyers, speaking out about what they feel happened, and kind of backing up what the old attorneys, new attorneys. Anyway, so let's play this here. Give me a second. I'll share this and. Right. So these are Richard Allen's ex-attorneys. They were appointed again by Judge Gall when she removed Baldwin and Rossi. Uh, and this is, I believe, this is William Librato. Um, so we'll play this.
Allege the press release and the two defense attorneys held in contempt. These prosecutors say that Allen's newly reappointed attorneys, Brad Rosie and Andrew Baldwin, have violated the court's gag order and were grossly negligent for being at fault for crime scene photos being leaked to the public, which the state says has caused irreparable harm to the victims' families. In their motion, prosecutors allege the press release and the two occasions of leaked information show a trend by defense counsel of not being completely honest with the court, violating the court's gag order set in place to protect the integrity of the case and failing to comply with the protective order put in place to protect the discovery in this case. Well, now we're hearing from one of Richard Allen's former attorneys in a Court TV exclusive interview. Public defender William Librato.
I mean, I usually try not to get involved in a lot of these court battles like this here, but I think it's important in this case because it just seems like it's entering the wacky stages again here.
Stepped down as counsel earlier this month after the state Supreme Court decision, and he's therefore no longer bound by the gag order. Court TV documentary producer Barbara McDonald was the only person that he spoke to, and she is on the couch with me this morning. A wonderful journalist you are, and really, I like to say you are our in-house expert on the Delphi cases. This is something you have researched, written about, done interviews on for many, many years. Yeah. So this is really quite a feather in your cap that he's talking exclusively to you, Barbara. Tell us what was the most stunning thing to you that he shared, please.
I think how emphatic he is in his belief that Richard Allen is innocent, not just not guilty, but that he's innocent of these charges and not involved at all, according to Bill Librato. That was a bit surprising to me, you know, and I pushed back on that a bit. Like, you know, you're a defense attorney, that's your job, right? To say that. And he said he has handled murder cases. He's handled probably 100 murder cases in his career. And he says he doesn't say that very often. And he's never felt as strongly about a client's innocence as he does in this case.
Wow, Barbara, that says something. It really does. And the fact that you pushed him too, and you were like, well, you're not just saying your client's not guilty. You actually really believe that he's not guilty. And he even used the word innocent with you, not
innocent.
going a step beyond.
Yes, 100.
First thing I want to say is it's not unusual for defense attorneys to, doesn't matter who it is, to think the client is innocent. But I think it was this guy here that came out. I think it was right after Richard Allen was arrested in the case, and he, I think it was this guy here that that's going to speak soon. Is the one that felt like he thought Richard Allen was guilty.
100% innocent is what he said. Wow. We also talked about a lot of other things connected to the case, including the theory of Odinism that was floated by the original defense team. They've now been reinstated, but they said in some of their filings that they believe that white supremacist members of this Odinistic cult are responsible for the murders. And I asked him about that. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
I thought it was hocus pocus. I honestly didn't. I'd never heard of it. And the more I got into it, that's a real thing. It is a real thing, and it's scary.
In what way?
Well, I believe they sacrificed a girl and killed another one. Some of the people that live in Delphi were very brazen about their Odinistic beliefs on their Facebook pages and other social media accounts, including the sergeant who was in charge of keeping Mr. Allen safe in Westville.
You described one of those officers that's mentioned in one of Rosie and Baldwin's filings, Sergeant Jones, who was wearing patches that said "In Odin We Trust" on his Department of Corrections uniform.
Yep.
So just a thought here on this whole Odinism thing, and I'm going to try to find the actual stick figure kind of image that came out a while ago. So regardless of how you feel about this whole Odinistic thing that came out in the 136-page document by the defense, it's obvious at this point that the crime scene was left that way. It was basically staged that way. So whoever did this definitely knows something about ritualistic stuff. Just my opinion, anyways. So here we go.
The judge ordered the warden to make them stop. And then what did you notice?
That Mr. Jones had a tattooed under his right eye. From the best we can tell, it looks a lot like Odin's spear. And he had several tattoos on his forearms, including the interlocking triangles that are on his.
See, the other thing too is, I know everybody's been talking about, especially if you're in the defense side thing here, where you were one of the people that thought that these Baldwin and Rosie should be reinstated. I'm one of the people that think maybe this guy should have gone with these other attorneys because I don't know, they seem to be pretty good.
His Facebook post. I got to give credit to Mr. Rosie and Mr. Baldwin that, they picked up on that. We saw him and, confinement officers at the Allen County Jail aren't even allowed to have facial hair, let alone facial tattoos. I was a little miffed that.
The important thing is whether or not a jury is going to buy this, right? And I've been doing this for a very, very long time, and I've watched a lot of different, cases through history, and these conspiracy theories never seem to go well with juries. That's just my opinion. Sometimes they do, but I think this is all they have. I mean, but we'll see.
The warden allowed that, or he even knew what it was.
That was one of the things that surprised me too, is that it was the same guard, according to Bill Labredo, that had the patch, was told to stop wearing it, and then comes to work with the tattoo on.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this guy's being mistreated. It's just, I mean, I've always said they kind of did the same thing to Ron Logan. This is what they do. They try to put pressure on these guys to confess or to go crazy and confess, and that way they don't have to pay for state fees and all of that stuff, legal fees, and they're trying to get him to confess. That's no doubt.
Under his eye.
Oh, Barbara, as I'm watching that, and my jaw dropped. Something else that's interesting.
Hey, buddy, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you in Rick's chat too. Rick's awesome. Good to have him back.
That you asked him about when he's telling you he believes in that legal theory. He wasn't the first attorney to put it forward. As you know, it was the first set of defense attorneys who are now back currently Richard Allen's defense attorneys. And as we know, attorneys don't always agree on a legal theory in a case. To me, that really says something that there may be some substantive value in it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and he said that, their defense strategy would have been probably a little bit different than Rosie and Baldwin, but not too different. They were also preparing a Frank's memo for a Frank's hearing, alleging that there were, problems with the information that was used to obtain the search warrant for.
And I don't think it's unusual for, judges to kind of disregard motions and I mean, the defense. Usually in a case, the defense gets very little. The prosecution usually gets a little bit more than the defense when it comes to the judges. But in this case here, I think it's really hard to see any type of non-disparity between. I mean, I'm pretty sure this judge hates these defenders. Just my opinion, but I don't think anybody can take her seriously at this point. I think she should be removed or remove herself in this case because that's just my opinion. It's just where I stand on this. And I'm not in any. I don't want to be in any camp. I'm not in any specific camp on this thing here. But I did just think if she doesn't remove herself or if she doesn't get off of this case, this is definitely an appeal or even a mistrial. This guy should not be in a prison, period, at all.
For Richard Allen's home. So it sounds like they were following a similar path, if not.
Not now, anyways. Maybe after, because I just, it's my opinion, I think this guy's guilty, but the fact that he's in a prison right now and not a jail. I mean, this guy's never committed a crime before that we know of anyway. So jail or house arrest would have been fine for this guy. But if he's convicted, then absolutely he's deserves the worst possible punishment in history. But I don't think he should be in a prison right this very second.
Not, not identical, but a similar path for sure.
Close, right? With the Odinism theory being at the heart that someone.
I mean, I agree. I mean, even if she isn't biased at this point, it's kind of hard for anybody who's, basically looking at her kind of strange. Can't have an opinion that she's biased. I mean, she's just. I think it was a mistake to keep her on and reinstate them. It's just me, because anything she does at this point, she's going to be under a microscope. And the prosecutor's weighing in too now. The prosecutor's getting involved. So this case is just heading to the loony bin for sure.
Someone else carried this out, and that this brutal killing of those beautiful children was done by someone practicing
exactly.
Odinism.
And that's what, I think when that first Odin memo dropped, we were all like, Odinism, what is that? Right. And I think for a lot of people.
And that's where I am. I mean, I just personally think he's involved. He's he's definitely the guy, but I don't see them getting 12. I just don't see 12 jurors convicting him. I'm going to go over that in a little while anyways, but I don't think, especially now with all this other shit going on. I mean, you literally have to live under a rock to not know what's going on with this case now, especially with all of this lawyer stuff and judge stuff. It's going to be really hard, in my opinion, to get 12 jurors to believe, especially with the evidence they have, that he did this.
People, there's no way that could be true. And this is somebody who looked into it, who at first said, no, I don't buy that either. But then after getting into the case, he had it for 7.
I mean, I'm pretty sure this is the guy. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this is the attorney that went on camera right after Richard Allen was put in custody, and I'm pretty sure this is the lawyer that said he feels like this guy did it, and now he's saying he doesn't think so. So,
79 days as lead counsel, and he says there's something there.
Wow. Barbara, I know that obviously as an attorney, any communications he had with Richard Allen, as you know, are privileged, but he can certainly describe, how he was doing in jail or what he saw. The appearance, I know, has been so stunning.
And I've said before, like, I'm not in a camp. I don't want to be in a camp. I don't, because in this case here, you always have the loonies out there. But I mean, I don't want to be in the defense camp. I don't want to be in the prosecution camp. I just want whoever did this to go to prison or to, face, like I said, the worst possible punishment ever. But the problem is you want to get the right person. You want to get the right person who did this. And I'm not saying he's not the right person. I'm just saying innocent people go to prison all the time. And guilty people walk all the time too. So you want the right person to do this, because if you don't get the right person, then that means that the person who actually did this is still out there.
Running to so many people, the dramatic weight loss. Tell us what he shared with you about that.
He said that he is improving some mentally and physically, but that it is.
I agree. I mean, it's really important. I mean, you want to get the right person, period. I just, I'll go over a few things about this here in a couple minutes. The two things I want to see. One thing I want to see is I want to see exactly what Betsy Blair's statement was. And I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but, she's adamant that she didn't see who they thought she saw on the bridge. She went down to them and doubled down on who she saw, and who she saw looks nothing like Richard Allen. So I don't know what she said, what she wrote down, and the whole problem with this case, in my opinion, has been the investigation itself. The investigation itself has been nothing but a nightmare. This is a case here where Delphi's lucky. They got everybody that could have been involved in this case was involved in this case. They got the FBI involved really early. They got people from other counties coming over to help out. I mean, some cases, hey, Beyond the Evidence, how are you? It's Marv. Hi, Marv. They got like a ton of presence in this case. They had FBI, they had the Orion system, they had some cases don't get this coverage. Some cases don't get this type of law enforcement presence. I mean, look at Florida, for God's sakes. They basically they basically went there and said nothing to see here and then left, and then you haven't heard anything else since that. And in this case here, it's strange to me how they had all of these people investigating this case, and they sent a guy, a conservation officer, out to take down a statement from a witness with basically what amounts to a notebook and a pencil. I mean, it's just really, really well. It's just horrible how they handled this case early on.
Still very difficult for him. He dropped from 206 pounds at his arrest to about 122 pounds at his lowest.
I love your new name. I love your new channel. I've been trying to catch as much as I can from Marv's channel. That's Marv's channel. You can put your I don't think I made you a mod yet. But if you want, anybody wants, go check out Beyond the Evidence. She's awesome. Marv is great.
He says he's still probably in the 130 to 140 range, so definitely much lower than what he had been. He described him as calm, very soft-spoken, very engaged.
I'm late coming on. I usually try to get on here by 12:30, but they have this thing on YouTube now. They've been going. I don't know if anybody's seen Mystery Science Theater 3000. But they're running a marathon on YouTube, and I started watching it at about 12 o'clock, and I forgot the time. I'm a huge Mystery Science Theater fan.
In his defense, and very kind and appreciative to the people working on his defense.
Wow. It sounds like even though there was so much disruption and we saw such a bitter legal battle playing out all the way up to the state Supreme Court, you were there,
Right.
watching things. Even though that all happened, it seems that there was so much civility among these lawyers who were appointed for a brief time and then have left. It seems like there's no animosity, is there, between them and the original attorneys?
Yeah, he had high praise. He said if there's anything he can do to benefit them and their case, he's happy to take part in that. He feels that Richard Allen is in very capable hands, even though he would have liked to have stayed on the case. He said it's very rare that you get a high-profile case where you really believe your client is innocent. And that
you have two sides in these cases. You have the defense. The defense is basically there to they're create doubt. I mean, it's what their job is to do. I mean, they're gonna go to the bank with this guy's innocent, right? And then you have the prosecution that's there to say, this guy's guilty. I mean, that's what their job is to do. Their job is to prove that he committed this crime. But like I said, you want to get the right person. You want the judicial system to do things by the book. And I just don't think this judge here has drank the Delphi Kool-Aid just like everybody else. I mean, she's had a keg full, and now she feels, in my opinion, like I call her King Doll, like she's above everybody else in this case, and she's just not. She needs to keep her personal opinion out of this shit. Just do things by the book and see what happens. I mean, I'm with Dean. I don't think they're going to find 12 jurors to agree that this guy here, but who knows? I don't know.
That's where he was. But he says, you know, he absolutely is willing to do whatever he can. I know that, you know, legality wise, it's a little dicey now at this point, but he wants to see Richard Allen get a fair trial. And he also believes that Judge Fran Gull is the secret to that fair trial. He thinks she's the right judge.
I've been listening. I drive a lot at night. I've been listening to a lot of the Dateline stuff, and I hear about these trials and shit. You know, very rarely do these jurors go with these conspiracy type theories. It's really hard to for a jury to buy into that stuff. But like I said, in my opinion, it's going to come down to what Betsy Blair saw, her statement, and what was recorded when he went to this conservation officer. I want to see what was written down. I want to see the actual statement, because if he said back in 2017 that he was there from 12:30 to 2:30 or 3:30, he's going to have to come up with an alibi, in my opinion.
Judge for this case.
And now she's been appointed is it the chief judge in her division, Barbara? Wow. So, which is a huge nod from her colleagues. I mean, that must say so much about her.
He said she's one of the most qualified judges he's ever worked with. He's been arguing before her for 2 decades or more, and says she's absolutely the judge who's going to ensure that Richard Allen gets a fair trial, which is what he says he wants.
Yes, and he certainly has that right, as you know. Barbara McDonald, I can't wait to see all of your interview. Thank you for.
No, I don't. I don't think they have the smoking gun, so to speak, in this case. If they did, they wouldn't be trying all of these tactics to get rid of the defense. I think they wanted to. When they arrested this guy, Richard Allen, I don't think they knew very much about him. And that's why I think they kind of wanted to seal the PCA so they could investigate further. I don't think they knew anything about this guy. I think they were pretty close to going cold with this case. They went on a hunch to search the Wabash River, in my opinion, and I think that that didn't come up with anything. So I think they were at a because I remember during the Wabash River search, about 3 weeks into it, they took a break for the weekend. And I remember everybody was saying, "Why are they taking a break? Why aren't they out there?" And I think that's it. It's when they kind of ease up on that search is when they found the tip for this guy. But I don't think they have. Normally, they probably would have enough. But if you read the actual PCA and some of the statements in the PCA, it just, I don't see jurors just sitting there saying, "Yeah, this guy's guilty." I think you're going to have 3 or 4 jurors that say, "Wait a minute," because Betsy Blair basically doubled down on what she said she saw, and that's why they came out with that younger guy sketch again, because that's who she saw on the bridge.
For the
Closing
preview.
arguments.
Yes.
Yep. And then there's also going to be a story going up on courttv.com with some more
Beautiful.
information from my talks with him.
Beautiful. You've been doing a great job with the writings that you put up on our website and all the information you are sharing. Barbara, thank you so much.
Julie.
And again, a big reminder, you can watch all of Barbara's exclusive.
I appreciate everybody coming in tonight. The weather sucks. It's just horrid around here. We've gotten a lot of freaking ice lately. Okay, so I want to go to this other one here, and then I'm going to do a little, let's do this one here. Is this the one I wanted to do?
Her son, the Oxford school shooter. Today, a firefighter who Jennifer was having. They were supposed to get picked up. Their families began to worry, and they began to search. Then the next day, the worst news possible. The bodies of these 2 young girls were found, both victims of murder. As the investigation progressed over 5
Yeah, I have literally no confidence in Nick McClelland at all in this case. I don't. Like I said, when they got this tip warrant, they went out to his house and did the search warrant and stuff. I think they were expecting to find a lot of shit in there, but I don't think they did. You have no snow and higher temps than normal, not complaining. Yeah, I wouldn't complain either. It's been warmer here too. about a degree or two, but around here, it's not a good thing if it's a little bit warmer than normal. I'd rather see snow any day of the week than what we've been getting lately.
Years, there were sketches of the suspect that looked like two different people, and there was video of the killer. Then finally, an arrest of the accused murderer, Richard Allen. Allen says he didn't do it, and he also alleges it was a group of Odinites who are responsible, white nationalists practicing an ancient Nordic religion. This case.
But I mean, if he said back in 2017 that he was on the trails between 1:30 and 2:30, anywhere around that time frame, he's going to have to come up with an alibi, because I've seen people get convicted before. But like I said, I don't know exactly what he said. I haven't seen the note. I haven't seen any of that stuff. So, and it's obvious that some of the law enforcement in this case have kind of stretched the evidence a little bit. So until I see that, I don't know. That's why they have trials.
Has also been buried in legal controversy involving Richard Allen's attorneys, who were on the case, off the case and replaced, and then back on the case. Tonight, we'll speak with one of his replacement attorneys.
So I think I think the driver who said they saw 4 teenagers I'm pretty sure that was Betsy Blair who said that. And it would have made sense if she would have seen him with the 3 girls, because he's 5'5", and when you're driving, at any type of speed, and if you drive by 3 or 4 people, you're going to see what you see. But I also think that it's just strange to me that Betsy Blair saw a guy on the bridge in his 20s with brown curly hair, and she didn't say anything about height. That would have been, because I think when Betsy Blair got there and got on the trail and walked out to the bridge and saw whoever she saw standing there, that spooked her. That was like she didn't expect to see anybody there, and she was freaked out of her mind, and she turned around and started walking the other way. But when you get freaked out like that, that's one thing you're going to notice is height and different types of characteristics of, especially height. If you see somebody 5'5" standing there, or 5'4", you're going to remember that. So I want to know what she said exactly, period. But, from what I've read in the PCA, and she saw somebody in their 20s with brown curly hair, no facial hair. And that's why there's a big difference between the 2 sketches, because they had that younger guy sketch in the beginning. They just didn't go with it. And I also think that's why they thought 2 people were involved at one point.
About Allen's innocence, his treatment while in custody, and Odinism, as we continue our investigation of the Delphi murders. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, height is something that I like. If I was freaked out about something, I would remember somebody's height, because average male is about 5'9", 5'8", between like 5'8" and 5'10", right? You see a guy out there standing there and he's 5'4", that would be something that I would remember right away, especially if I was spooked. If it was something that spooked me, I would remember that, and she was technically only about 50 feet away. So, and she's pretty adamant about what she saw. It's not like they went to her and said, do you remember what you saw? She went to them. That's why they had that huge press conference, the infamous press conference in 2019. Because she went to them and said, you guys have the wrong guy. That's basically what she said to them.
Night. Abby and Libby were best friends.
So I don't know how the prosecution is going to discredit her. It's their witness. So, but I guarantee you the defense will be all over that.
And when I think about what happened to them and the moments of terror that they went through, the fact that 2 were murdered doubles the tragedy, obviously. But for each one of them, at least they weren't alone.
I've been pretty consistent in this thing, because I've been following this thing ever since it came out day one. I really didn't start really following it until like the first year anniversary on the bridge there. And I think law enforcement was really convinced that Daniel Nations was the guy at the time, but they just didn't have enough to charge him. Oh, you're awesome, Dean. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. But after that, that whole 1 year anniversary press conference on the bridge with Doug Carter, they literally looked stumped. They looked like they had no clue. And Rick Snay went over this earlier. Rick Snay is an awesome guy, and if you want to check out his channel, Delphi After Dark, Rick Snay is great. But I agree with him. They were stumped at that press conference, and they looked depressed. They literally looked depressed because they had image, they had the video, they had all the witnesses lined up. They just needed to know who the hell it was.
Right? I mean, that's a small consolation. But it reminds me of what we're dealing with out in Idaho with Kaylee and Maddie, best friends, who were also murdered when they.
Because I know it's going to sound like a broken record from YouTube creators, but this whole case, in my opinion, has got to do with these two people right here. They deserve answers. They're probably not going to get a why, because that's the answer that everybody wants. But they deserve to get the person who did this face the worst possible punishment that could ever be faced by any human being.
They were together. It's incredible loss for two families, and now having to go through everything that they've gone through. This is almost unconscionable, the point that we're at now for the victims. It took 5 years for Richard Allen to be arrested. This was.
And like Mr. Steve from True Crime Web says, unfortunately, in cases like this, you can't vote for who the suspect is. If it's this guy here, then just put him away forever or do whatever you got to do. If it's somebody else, as long as they get the right person, I don't care.
Was a guy who spoke with someone, gave a statement like the day of or the day after, saying he was there. And that in part became the basis for what they did like 5 years later in investigating him and executing a search warrant of his home. All things that could have been.
So I got this little thing scrolling on the bottom of the screen here, Owl and the Prowl. That's probably going to be my new name for the channel here. So just to let everybody know.
Done easily within the first month of this investigation. He said he was there. And they had some video image of the person who was there that they were able to retrieve. So at least at that point, they're like, oh, all right, we've got a video of the killer. Well, who was there that day, guys? I mean, it didn't happen. I can't believe it. But he's been arrested. Now, obviously, he says he's complete.
And I said back then, this case is not this complicated. It just isn't. It just, it's horrendous. It's awful. You like it? I'm glad you like it. That means it took me 2 years to figure out a name for the channel, but I think I got it. How are you doing, Miss Persevere? Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to call it, because I'm a huge owl fan, bird fan technically, but owls and any type of raptor for sure.
Completely innocent and did not do this, and he gets the presumption of innocence. And his original attorneys, who are fighting tooth and nail on this one and also believe in his innocence, are back on the case.
And honestly, I don't think the original investigators, thank you, Marv, appreciate it. Those who want to, Jinx is here. It's Jinx. Jinx is in the chat. Yeah, I miss Jinx. Jinx is, Yeah, hubbies snore loud. Wife snore loud too. Jinx is in the chat. I think Jinx is a mod. Are you a mod? Did I make you a mod? Because anybody can post any of their channels in here. I don't care if you post your channels in here. Marv has got a Beyond the Evidence is a great channel. Jinx is great. Miss Persevere is great. So you guys had channels. Handsome. I can't believe Jinx is in there. That's awesome.
Baldwin and Rosie. These two guys have been very aggressive in their defense of Richard Allen. Not a popular position to be in, right?
Jinx has that awesome Kentucky accent. It's just absolutely wonderful. One of these days, I got to go to Kentucky just to hear that accent.
Right? This is the highest profile case. Went unsolved for years. Horrific murder. And you're representing the accused killer. You're not going to be popular, but they want in on this case. They believe in his innocence. So that's a significant factor in all.
I didn't even pay Jinx to say that.
All of this, because this isn't going to be one of those cases where the defense rolls over. And we've had a few trials like that here on Court TV, where people, the evidence is overwhelming and, the defense does their thing, but doesn't really do their thing. Completely different in this case. So tonight we have a Court TV exclusive because, as you know, there have been different lawyers.
We're big fans of Jinx here. Jinx is a freaking awesome person. She's always around on these channels, in the channels. Very, very awesome person.
Representing Richard Allen at different times. And one of them, William Libredo, who was one of the replacement lawyers.
Wow, what the hell are people doing up? Hi, Heather. How are you? Good to see you. Is this where is this where the cool people hang out? I don't know. This is where the people who don't like snoring hang out. That's for sure.
Is now off the case, but spoke exclusively with Court TV. And joining me in studio, senior producer of Court TV documentaries, Barbara McDonald, who did that interview. Barbara, great to see you. How did this all come about?
I have reached out to him before asking for an interview. He was under the gag order while he was on the case. As soon as that Supreme Court decision came down, I reached out again. He said, yeah, I want to talk now. So we set it up. I flew up to Fort Wayne.
You had a bad day, Marv? I hope you're well. That sucks. I'll try to find your page and post it in there. God, that sucks.
And we sat down and talked.
So big picture, after sitting down and speaking with him, what was your biggest takeaway from the whole thing?
How I think bothered he is by this case and the treatment that Richard Allen is receiving while he's being held in a maximum security prison pending trial, the role of potential odiness in this case, and he believes that Richard Allen is innocent.
Wow. Okay, so let's do this. Let's get to that interview. The folks at home like, Vinny, will you play the interview? Yes, we will. Let's take a listen. Now, this is the part where you're talking about his innocence,
yes.
Right? And folks at home know the difference in our legal world between believing your client's innocent and believing that the other side doesn't have enough evidence to prove that he's guilty. Those are two different things. He believes he's innocent. Let's take a listen.
Bradley Rosie and Andrew Baldwin issued a press release not too long into their getting the case, and they said they believe that Richard Allen is innocent. Do you have an opinion on that?
I do. I don't think Mr. Allen had anything to do with this. I honestly don't. Now, what I believe, nobody cares.
Well, I'm glad it's getting a little bit better, Marv.
My job would have been to convince 12 jurors of that.
You're a defense attorney, so that's your job to sort of say your client is innocent. Is that something you say about all your clients?
No, and rarely I do. I don't think.
I just rewound it a little. Hey, Frosty. Hey, you want to come up, buddy, or you at work? Chad. I gotta I rewound this a little bit because I want to hear what he said here.
Mr. Allen had anything to do with this. I honestly don't. Now, what I believe, nobody cares. My job would have been to convince 12 jurors of that.
You're a defense attorney, so that's your job to sort of say your client is innocent. Is that something you say about all your clients?
No. And
It is a little weird that both sets of attorneys, right? I'm pretty sure both sets of these attorneys, even Rosie and Baldwin, she appointed. So both sets of these attorneys. I'm pretty sure this is the guy that said he thought he was guilty last year. So it's strange now that both of these sets of attorneys that she appointed thinks this guy is not guilty. Now, is that defense attorneys just being defense attorneys? Maybe, but he doesn't have to say this.
and rarely do I believe it. But in this particular case, I believe it 100%.
Hey, Lynn, how are you? Good to see you. It's always good to see Lynn in here. Where am I? Right there.
And what convinced you?
Conversations with him, the fact that he lived in this very small community that's not much bigger than a high school. He worked at the CVS in Delphi. The police sketches are hung up in the CVS. The bridge guy picture is in the CVS. And
Yeah, I myself personally, I think he's guilty. But my opinion doesn't really matter. It's going to come down to the jurors. And unless they start coming out with some more evidence here, I just don't think they're going to find 12 jurors that can agree on this. But who knows?
in 5.5 years, no one comes into that store and says that kind of looks like you. And I don't know if this has any relevance. And, I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
They were on this case for 72 days, I think. So he's probably seen a lot of what they have. I don't think they have all the discovery yet either. So I don't know what's going on. But who knows? I just don't know.
But an arrest was made 24, 27 days before a sheriff election. Just my humble opinion that played some kind of role in his arrest.
So
I'm sticking to, I've always thought this was a lone wolf guy, and I'm sticking with it. I don't think and I think the only reason why they thought there might have been two people involved is because of the two different sketches. I think that, and again, I go back to the Betsy Blair statement. I think she saw a guy on the bridge in the 20s with curly brown hair. And somebody else saw somebody with facial hair and looked like the older guy sketch.
He hadn't moved. He hadn't changed his story. No facts or evidence have changed, to my knowledge, that brought law enforcement back to him 5.5 years later. He has no criminal record. They raided his house, took all of his social media. There's no ties to this Odinistic cult whatsoever. He didn't even know.
I do think that juries have a hard time with conspiracy theories, and if they keep going with this Odinistic thing, I think they're going to have pushback from the jury. But that's just me. If I was the defense, I'd be just constantly going after the witnesses, because I don't think the witness statements are going to be all that relevant, especially if Betsy Blair saw what she saw. the prosecution can't try to discredit her. It's their witness.
That there was odiness in Delphi. He had never heard of it. Just a lot of things don't make sense.
Bradley Rosie and Andrew Baldwin also said that that there's no electronic evidence linking him to the crime scene or the girls, and that there's no DNA of his at the scene. Is that accurate?
Yes. As far as I can tell, yes.
All right, we're going to bring in some more guests to join me and Barbara here. Joining us in Orange County, California, the author of Forest for the Trees, a book about the Delphi murders, investigative producer Chris Todd. And in Salt Lake City, Utah, retired police commander, religious cult expert, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, and the author of the book Deceived, an investigation into Zion Society cult. Mike King is here. Barbara, I'll start with Barbara, though. I'm going to ask her a quick question. The fact here that you're asking him about, he believes in the innocence. What was the sense you're getting in the room with him?
That he felt that. He was very sincere, I thought. His answers were careful and deliberate, but I thought he was sincere and he believed what he was saying.
Chris Todd, you investigated this thing. One of the things that he points out, for 5 years, the pictures of the sketches of the killer, that don't look alike, but that's another story, right? The picture of the actual video grab are in the CVS where this guy's working, and no one's putting two and two together. What are your thoughts about why the arrest of Richard Allen?
So I haven't seen anything about that Fort Wayne thing yet. That sucks, though. Well, for me, as far as the evidence is, for me, it's going to go back to his original statement. If his original statement puts him on the bridge or on the trail between 12:30 and 2:30, whatever, he's going to have to come up with an alibi, because if not, they're going to fry him anyways. Because I'm not a big fan of the confession thing. People confess in jail all the time, prison all the time. Especially if you go from being a free person into solitary confinement, you're going to go batty. Most people will go absolutely batty.
In that time frame.
They used to do shit like that in 14th century England, where they would just, even if you weren't guilty, they would make you say you're guilty.
Well, we've talked about this before, and I don't believe Richard Allen is bridge guy. And I believe that's what we're all talking about here, is how would no.
I hate to say that, but I think this guy is a real piece of dog crap. I don't like him at all, and he's an idiot.
Don't recognize him, his voice, his body type, his height. How would nobody know that it's him? I don't believe he is bridge guy. I've stated who I believe that is. I'm not going to say it this second, but I do believe Richard Allen is involved. I just don't think he's on the bridge.
And that gets us to a whole nother place, right? That he's not alone in doing all of this. All right, Mike King. Here's the.
This guy here, man. I don't know what his problem is, but he has no clue.
Evidence, right? Because he's arrested because they believe they have evidence in the case. It's not like, oh, let's just, hey, he's at CVS, let's get that guy. Richard Allen told police he was on the.
Tell us how you really feel, Marv. I've never liked him at all. I think he's just in it for whatever. He's just clueless, literally clueless.
The trail the day Abby and Libby went missing. Richard Allen's description of the clothing he was wearing that day matches the clothing of the suspect in the video on the victim's phone. A vehicle resembling Allen's 2016 Ford Focus was observed near the trail around 1:30.
I've also always said that this guy here on the bridge was no taller than 5'9". That's why I had to rule out Tony Klein and Ron Logan, because they're big guys, and it's definitely not Keegan Klein up there. If this would have been Keegan Klein, Tony Klein, or Ron Logan, this guy here would have looked like a massive man out here. I mean, this guy here, if you look at his pant legs, they're really, he's having a hard time filling out these pants, and he's under 5'9" for sure. Because what I did is I took the image of
And the Indiana State
Abby on the bridge, and I kind of combined the two with these trees here. And Abby was 5'4". She was probably 5'6" with her hair up. So this guy here isn't 6 inches taller than Abby. It's just not happening.
Police lab determined an unspent round found near the victims' bodies had been cycled through Richard Allen's Sig Sauer model P226, which apparently he kept for all those years, according to prosecutors. Your thoughts about the strength of that case based on that evidence?
I think that it really is important and really strong, Vinny. I mean, you got to take into account how can all these things happen? And we've talked about circumstances.
I mean, this guy is really short. I mean, he's, I'm not trying to make short jokes, but this guy here is, how he hasn't gotten fingered or pointed out in 5.5 years is beyond me. But people sometimes look taller or bigger than they do on camera. I don't know, but this guy here is really short.
And are incredibly coincidental that he would happen to be in the same place at the same time. And when we get to see the ballistics on this unspent round that was cycled through, I don't know if that means that it's an artifact of scraping on the sides of the cart.
Hey, Tom James, how are you? I didn't see you in here. Yeah, he's almost, I don't want to say he's that tall, short, but like I said, I'm pretty sure Betsy Blair, when she went to the trail that day, she wasn't expecting to see somebody on the bridge. And I think that really spooked her. Maybe she did say the guy was really short, or maybe she did point that out. But that would have been something that would have stuck in my mental. The height of the person, if he was 6'8" out there, I would have remembered that. But if he was also like 5'4", I would have remembered that too. Maybe she did. I don't know. I have no idea.
Cartridge itself that is the artifact. If there was an actual attempt to fire that bullet and there's indentations on the firing pin, but it was a misfire, it's going to be really important when that thing comes into court. And there are both sides shouting out at the top of
I also think if she would have crossed the bridge that day, she would have been the victim.
their lungs, that is that kind of a comparison is of no value, and others saying it absolutely is. But if you've got markings that gun is the only gun on the earth that will make, and those end up on those cartridges that are found next to the bodies, that's incredibly powerful evidence.
Now, I want to put this up on the screen because there is one other.
See, I don't think that's really that big of evidence. I mean, it's not like that's the murder weapon, right? I mean, the gun, to me, the bullet, I don't know how that's even relevant in this case. That's not even, unless they have a really good image of him, the person walking towards Libby and Abby, which I think they do with a gun. The bullet, the gun, the ammunition, all of that stuff, that's not the murder weapon.
Piece of evidence, I think, is something that needs to be explained. On April 3rd, 2023, Richard Allen made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen, and this is while he's locked up. In that phone call, Richard Allen admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby.
I hate to say it, but when I first saw the image of the bridge guy on the bridge, this was way back in year one, I was pretty convinced that was Mike Patty on the bridge. I mean, they're both the same height. I think they're pretty close anyways. The only reason why I changed my mind about Mike Patty is because he must have left before the girls. So, how he knew they were going to be out there. So that's why I changed my opinion on him. But I mean, if you look at Mike Patty's height and this guy's height, they're almost identical. Mike Patty may be a little taller.
Investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly. Barbara McDonald, what did William Labredo have to say about that?
He said he has a lot of questions about it, that his understanding is it was basically one sentence that Richard.
That's awesome, Marv. I've been trying to catch up on the Tabitha stuff. It's just I work nights, so it's really hard for me to get on sometimes during the day here. I think it could be important if they have a really good look at that gun. If like if he's 60 feet away when she's taking that video, so if he's walking towards them and he's pulling out that revolver, there may be specific marks on that handgun that they can kind of link to. So maybe at that point it might be important.
Richard spoke, this confession, so not a lot of detail provided in that confession. And he says that Richard Allen was receiving medication while he's in prison.
Well, like I said, I've seen guilty people walk before, so they got to be really careful in this case. And I already think this is heading to an appeal anyway, so it just doesn't matter. But that's what you don't want for the families. You don't want this to go through appeals process for years and years and years and years.
Both shots and pills. He doesn't know what those medications were. He tried to find out. And so he has a lot of questions about what all was going on. He also says false confessions are a real thing, especially when people are subjected to.
When I was in my 20s, I went to jail for a little while, and people confess in jail all the time. That's the one thing you're going to hear in jail all the time. People, it's strange. One day you'll hear people claim they're innocent, and then the next day you'll hear people claim they're guilty. It depends on the circumstance. And they all find God in prison, for sure.
Very harsh prison conditions.
Yeah, the one thing about the false confession in this case, though, that we've seen him here on Court TV, but it's usually under an interrogation scenario. This is a call to his wife.
The appeals process can be brutal for their families because they have to go through the whole thing all over again. I mean, these poor people, Becky Patty and Kelsey German, and like, good Lord, to go through this all over again. I know they're strong people, but I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Mike King, your thoughts on that? Because this is going to be significant. No one has heard this thing outside of investigators, and I presume maybe at some point the defense will hear it. What are your thoughts about this confession, and what would be important about the circumstances for you surrounding it?
I think that the most important thing that comes out of this is it wasn't one confession. By every account that I've read and other testimony I've heard on different media sources, is that it was at least 5 times, maybe 6 times, that he made these confessions or admissions that he was.
I mean, like I've been saying too, the one thing about this case is I don't know anything about Richard Allen. To contrast different cases, I mean, we know pretty much everything about Rex Heumann. We know pretty much everything about Brian Koberger. This guy here, Richard Allen, I know nothing about this guy. I don't even know, it's so weird how everybody's been so hush-hush about this guy's history here.
The guy, and I think that's going to be really difficult to overcome, Vinny. You can say, okay, he might have been having a problem. Just
that's who I feel bad for, especially Anna. But these poor people. If this goes through an appeal process, my good Lord.
Before he started eating evidence and having all of this bizarre behavior, so I want to know the timing of those other 4 or 5 calls.
Who was a Marine? Oh, Richard Allen.
Calls, not only just to his wife, but we also know that one of those calls was to his mother, where he explained that he was the guy.
Chris Todd?
I thought you had to be a specific height to be a Marine. Maybe not.
What is it about the scene, the evidence, the story, the case that makes you believe it's more than one person?
Because he's an idiot.
For a long time, I thought it was just one person, and until everything started to fall into place, they arrested Richard Allen, and
sounds like Gray Hughes, the flip-flopper. At one time, I thought,
I said before, the word on the street is that he had bragged about being involved in the murders, and that's how they were tipped off to him. So I always had a hunch there were possibly 2 people involved. And so I believe that one person is waiting on the property and the other person holds the girls at gunpoint, and they meet together down by the creek, and they go to a location that is not, I believe, is not the crime scene where the bodies were found.
All right, our guests are staying with us. We'll continue with more of our Court TV exclusive.
You could just see the guy's face. It's classic. That whole thing is classic.
Interview with Richard Allen's.
Watch this guy's face when he says this. Watch this other guy.
Tipped off to him. So I always had a hunch there were possibly two people involved.
Oh, it's classic.
And so I believe that one person is waiting on the property and the other person holds the girls at gunpoint, and they meet together down by the creek, and they go to a location that is not, I believe, is not the crime scene where the bodies were found.
All right, our guests are staying with us. We'll continue.
Look at this guy's face. What an idiot. Okay. All right, is there anybody else there we can talk to? It's too funny. All right, so I think that's the end of this one here. Yep. All right, so we're going to get out of here. So that's it with Delphi. I mean, there really isn't it. I mean, this whole, I try not to get into the whole lawyer thing back and forth. I just hope this goes to trial at some point in our lives. And then I do want to go, what did I want to do here? Hold on a second. Okay, so I want to go to this here too, because this was done. When was this done? Well, let's play this anyways. Hold on a second. So, by a raise of hands in the audience, when it comes to the Kansas City thing, how many people think there's something else to this story besides just people freezing to death here? So this is, we're going now to the whole Kansas City fan mystery here. And they got some of the toxicology reports back on this here. So
in Kansas City 3 weeks ago after watching a Chiefs game. The police now have the toxicology reports, and they apparently show fentanyl, cocaine, marijuana in the systems of all three men. News Nation is told the amount of fentanyl is well beyond the legal.
Good night, Jinx. Thank you for coming in. It's always good to have you in here. I miss hanging out with you guys, you and Frosty and everybody. Have a great weekend, Jinx.
Lethal limit, not legal, but lethal, 3 times the amount. The toxicology reports were shared.
So when was this done? This was done 4 hours ago. So
with family members of the 3 men, 38-year-old Ricky Johnson, 36-year-old Clayton McGinney, and 37-year-old David Harrington. After mounting pressure from family.
If it was a great live, it's because you were in here. Have a good night, kiddo.
Family and the media, the family's furious over the lack of answers until this point. Meanwhile, the living friend, Jordan Willis, who was a tenant in the home.
I don't know Missouri law. This was in Missouri, right? So I don't know if they can charge this guy anyways. I mean, they might be able to charge him with, I don't know, accessory to M or just regular, I don't know, manslaughter. I don't know the laws out there. I'll have to look into it.
Home they'd gone to is moved out of the house, checked himself into rehab. Willis never contacting the police, despite the men being dead and frozen in his backyard for 2 days. His family calling the deaths of his friends a serious wake-up call. Quote, after the shocking loss of 3 of his close friends under extremely tragic circumstances, Jordan recognized he had a problem with addiction. He immediately checked himself into rehab after vacating his home and putting his things into storage.
Okay, so, oh, hold on a second. I want to read that. After the shocking loss of 3 of his close friends under extremely tragic circumstances, Jordan recognized that he had a problem. He immediately checked himself into rehab after vacating his home and putting his things into storage. So he knows he has a problem now.
Home and putting his things into storage. Since the beginning of this case, police have said there are no signs of foul play. They're not investigating this as a homicide at this point, something that the families have pushed back against. Recently, News Nation interviewed the cousin of Clayton McGinney, who talked about Jordan Willis, the man whose house they'd been visiting.
A lot of times I'm hearing that David, Clayton, and Ricky were like brothers. Jordan was kind of off on the side.
Mm-hmm.
True?
Jordan's a chemist, bro.
Jordan's what?
Jordan's a chemist. They all knew him as that. It was easy for them to go have fun, but he made a mistake. Jordan was the chemist. He's a scientist, right? He does what he needs to do. Now, to use my cousin, my best friend, as a guinea pig?
See, that's the way the families, at least some of them, are feeling, pointing the finger directly at the other guy who was in that house. Back with me, Geraldo Rivera, Rachel Juarez,
It's just a terrible tragedy, too, though.
Judge on TV's Hot Bench, and Jesse Weber, News Nation legal contributor. All right, Geraldo, what do you make of the families are angry?
Well, it's a tragedy. As I said 2 weeks ago on this program, this is about drugs. It was obvious to me. They thought they were doing coke. They were doing fentanyl instead. Another one of these tragic overdoses based on fentanyl. It's a tragic accident. It is what's killing every movie star that you see die under mysterious circumstances. Quietly, weeks later, they release the toxicology, and it's fentanyl in the blood. It is a scourge. It is a killer. If you want to find out who's responsible for those 3 deaths, find out who sold the scientist there, the chemist, the fentanyl, the coke that was supposed to be pure coke.
But it sounds to me like they're basically saying, I mean, at least that family member was saying, this guy was probably cooking something up there.
I agree with Geraldo. That's a possibility. I think it might be premature. Remember, we still don't have the cause of death or the manner of death report from the actual ME, the autopsy report. What I could say is who introduced the fentanyl. If we accept the possibility that it was the fentanyl that killed them all at the same time outside, and perhaps Willis himself took it as well and was knocked out, who introduced it there? Was it Willis himself? Did he know it was part of the drugs? Did he get it from a dealer? We have covered cases before where people lace drugs with these kinds of toxic byproducts, and they're brought up on criminal charges, whether it's manslaughter or something else. So I think that is this next step in the investigation. Even though they're saying it's no foul play, even though they're saying it's no homicide investigation now, that could change once they get more answers.
Rachel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the issue of whether or not they voluntarily ingested it, whether they knew what they were taking, and if they didn't, who was responsible for the introduction of the fentanyl into whatever they ended up taking, I think that's got to be where the police are going. And we'll see what happens from there. And then we'll get the autopsy report and see if the fentanyl contributed to the death. I mean, look, either way, it contributed. If they froze to death, it's because they took so much fentanyl that they ended up outside in a lawn chair.
It had to be.
So one way or another, the fentanyl.
I mean, there's no other explanation as to how they died other than drug use, right? Of course. So the question is just going to be.
Well, it could be hypothermia.
Well, no, fine, hypothermia, but the only reason that they're out in the cold is
as
because
a result of being outside.
Right.
Of course.
And cold and opioids work the same way. They slow your respiration. Your heartbeat slows down. Your breathing slows down. You're outside. It's below zero. At a certain point, your body doesn't support any kind of heat at all. Your temperature drops way down until your heart stops. And that's what happens.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button.
So that's just weird. Let's do this one here.
Found. Could he now face charges?
Bro, what is going on right now? What is going on right now?
It's been nearly 1 month since 3 Kansas City Chiefs fans were found dead outside of a home on the city's north side. Since then, we've seen...
See, this happens all the time, right? You have these cases here where the police keep saying, nope, nothing to see here, nothing to see here, nothing to see here, until there's an arrest. So I wouldn't put this story to bed yet. I'd probably say it's I would say maybe 70-30, where there's 30% an issue going on here and 70% not. But police do this all the time. They say nothing's going on, and all of a sudden there's an arrest.
seen widespread coverage of the mysterious case with few answers.
Kansas City Chiefs, they're in the Super Bowl. So, and along with the Swift and Kelsey, their relationship, anything will engage with the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be hitting the news.
That was retired FBI agent Colin Schmidt, who says there's a lot of reasons why the case has stayed in the headlines, but there may soon be more answers.
The fact that it was just such a horrible circumstance where 3 people were found outside, basically frozen to death. But I think as they drive in, they probably didn't freeze to death. They probably died of a drug overdose.
Here's what we do know. On January 7th, the Kansas City Chiefs took on the Los Angeles Chargers for the last game of the regular season. That night, Jordan Willis held a viewing party at his rental home in KC. At the get-together, 38-year-old Ricky Johnson, 37-year-old David Harrington, and 36-year-old Clayton McGeeney, all 3 men went to high school together, and so did Alex Weimer-Lee, who made an appearance at the watch party. The Chiefs bested the Chargers 13-12, but the Friends party carried on well after the game. Weimer-Lee reported he left the rest of the group at about midnight, saying they were still up and watching Jeopardy! It was 2 days later, on January 9th, when McGeeney's fiance found his body in the backyard of Willis's rental home.
Good night, Marv. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. For those who don't know, that's Marv, Beyond the Evidence. Go check out her channel. She's awesome. I posted her link in here somewhere. She's in here somewhere. She's got a great channel. Very good person. I've been following Marv forever. Have a good weekend, Marv. Stay safe. Hope everything gets better soon.
The bodies of Johnson and Harrington were also recovered. Weeks later, local Kansas City stations report toxicology results have been completed and handed over to police. We're seeing reports that the toxicology report has been completed. It's been handed over to police, and even some of the victims' families have received the tox report, or at least learned what's inside of it. We haven't seen it publicly. It hasn't completely been released, and I'm wondering why not.
Well, I think they're still trying to determine.
I would also wouldn't be surprised if they hire a private eye for this case here. Even if something comes back to be just accidental, I wouldn't doubt the families hire a private eye.
Determine cause of death, and then basically there might have to be an autopsy to determine if there was another factor that caused the deaths of these 3. I don't know if they did an autopsy when they recovered the victims. They did say in the article that you sent me that it was 30 degrees outside and they were found dead. I don't recall if they were found in the snow or not, but generally speaking, 30-degree weather, you're going to be able to kind of save yourself, so to speak. Now, if it was 30 below, or what I used to deal with in Wisconsin, when you have that wind going, yeah, you could freeze to death very quickly if you weren't dressed appropriately. But in this case, they would have survived for quite some time in with that temperature. So it really comes back to.
See, I don't think that's that bizarre. I've been to football games. I've been to concerts. I've been to. You'd be surprised what goes on. So I don't think it's all that bizarre. But this case here to me, I don't want to say it's a case, but this whole story here to me is a little bit bizarre. Maybe it's just me. I don't know, but it just doesn't seem right.
To answer your question, why are they not being specific about a cause of death? I think they want to make sure they have their ducks in a row, because if it turns out that it was a fentanyl overdose, for example.
The problem is I don't see like a motive, right? Why would somebody do this? But then again,
Example, they don't want to tip off whoever gave them the drugs, and also they want to be prepared to make some arrests.
High-speed chases.
We got
unruly suspects.
I will kill that mother.
Chase me?
No.
Do it.
Stay in the.
Underwear with a wine glass.
Yeah,
After that, he was put in handcuffs, and the entire.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, it could be just me, my mental state, but it's just really, I don't know. It's not sitting well with me here with this.
Their interaction was caught on video by Willis's neighbor.
Bro, what is going on right now? What is going on right now? Dude, domestic violence is crazy. Yo, everybody be nice to one another. Come on now.
Is there any reason why he would be taken into custody or detained rather right away, but then not face charges?
Well, I think the cops were, reacting to very imperfect information. I mean, they just got 3 dead people in a yard, and the only survivors there. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to take actions to protect their own safety, which may have been the reason why they handcuffed him, or they got information from an informant or somebody called in or whatever that he was a culpable to this. And at that point, the cops did what cops do, is they basically are going to detain him and question him. And then as the information comes out, the U.S. Attorney or the DA's office might have said, well, we don't have enough necessarily right now to charge him. Why don't we just take a step back and continue to gather information?
That new information comes in the way of a toxicology report. Let's talk about drugs here, because that is something a lot of people have been speculating about really since this case began. And now we're seeing reports that there were substances in some of the victims' systems. Some are saying cocaine and fentanyl, and that's a big one a lot of people are pointing out, a potential fentanyl overdose. What do you make of
I don't know why that's happening.
Well, I had a case very at the tail end of my career of a fentanyl of a cocaine laced party drug, and the victims had no idea there was fentanyl in it, nor did they want fentanyl, obviously, and they all ingested this. And out of the 6 people that ingested it, all 4 died and 2 went to the hospital, or 2 survived. So one thing about fentanyl is if you're opioid tolerant, there's a possibility that you would survive if the cocaine was laced with fentanyl. But it appears to me that these 3 were not heroin addicts. They liked the party, so to speak. They liked to drink, and they probably got some cocaine that had fentanyl in it. And so the next step is who gave them the cocaine or that was particularly laced, and that's the person they're going to hold accountable.
All this adds up with our first report on the case, when we sat down with forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan.
I have to think of something that is going to drive down your neurological responses to the point where you're almost in a comatose state at that point in time. Well, what could facilitate that? At the top of my list are going to be opioids or perhaps some kind of synthetic opioid.
Morgan pointed out Willis may have had the same drugs in his system.
As to Mr. Willis, here's one of the problems we're going to encounter if we're trying to correlate the happenings in the backyard with this 48-hour gap for him.
Some reports say Alex Weimer-Lee, the other friend at the party, made a few texts that night about drugs. Other reports say witnesses saw some friends carrying multiple 30 packs of beer when headed to the party. So far, we don't know what Willis had in his system that.
I mean, I don't think that's too, bizarre. People drink a lot of beer, man, especially at the divisional round playoff game. This was a few weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, that's not the beer thing is not unusual.
Night, but Schmidt says it's a high probability he also had some fentanyl. In your experience with any fentanyl overdoses, could it cause somebody to pass out for 48 hours? The person I'm referring to in this case is Jordan Willis. He's the man who was renting the house where this entire party happened. He survived and he's alive, but he says that he has missing 48 hours. Is it possible that he too took whatever could have been laced with this fentanyl, let's say?
Yes, and that basically, when I saw that, because that happened in the case
Missing 48 hours, right? Like
case that I investigated, one of the survivors slept or was passed out for about 2 days, and he woke up. He saw his 2 friends were deceased. So he basically was in an opioid overdose state, but he was also a user of heroin, so he was able to survive the amount of fentanyl that he ingested. So when I saw that, I'm thinking
we got to get rid of fentanyl. That's just the way it is. There's nothing else to be done. I mean, I All right, so I'm going to get out of here. I do want to play this here because I saw this yesterday, and I want to play this here. So I'll keep up with that. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to charge him with anything. They might. I don't even know if they can. But I'm going to play this here. We're going to go back to Rex Heuermann here because now he is technically the Go-Go 4 guy because they attached a couple of more homicides to this guy here. So this is a woman who says she partied with Rex Heuermann. Rex Heuermann, if people don't know who he is, he's a suspect in the Go-Go 4 case in New Jersey.
Now, Rex Heuermann is the hulking 6'4", 240-pound architect suspected of being the Long Island serial killer. The man with the
Long Island, sorry.
nauseating porn search history who is charged with murdering and dumping at least 4 women. He's got a wife and 2 adult kids who also all lived inside that rundown home. So what is it like inside there? What might have happened in there? Lorraine Paulino was in that home. She says she partied with Rex and his wife and saw things that she now wishes she could change. And she is here with a Banfield exclusive. Lorraine, thank you so much for being here tonight. I so appreciate it. Can you just briefly summarize what were the circumstances that brought you inside that home?
Oh, we went to the home, me and my boyfriend, who was a
You couldn't force me into that guy's house.
police officer. We went to party with them. And we took a young lady with us to the party. So that's what it was about. It was a party.
And when you were inside in that home partying, did you come upon his wife, Asa Ellerup, or either of his adult kids, or who all was in there?
I mean, how many people think this guy's guilty? I do.
I met her. We met her when we came in. And then I sat with the guys in like a living room area. And she left when we went to the bedroom. So
This is like an Ajax commercial, right? Where you have, the nice and then the not so nice. I'm not passing judgments, but this house definitely does not look like it belongs on this road. I've been down here before to these beaches. These beaches are pretty good. Secluded, but pretty good. You need a lot of money to live down in here.
when we were finished, I asked her, where were you? You never came to the bedroom. I said, were you afraid of me or something? And she said, no, I'm not really into this. But, I'm glad you had fun. I said, thanks. I said, but tell me more.
I'm almost willing to say, I don't know for sure. This is just going by gut feeling and just opinion, but I have a feeling this guy here, Rex Heuermann, could become one of the most prolific SKers in American history. Because just my opinion that he's responsible for a lot more than 4 of these.
About yourself. And then she told me, oh, I'm a foreigner too. That's what.
In fact, I'm going to be going over that next week again too. I'm going to start up with the Maine South Woodsman unalivings, but which was over here in Worcester, Massachusetts. This MO of this here is pretty similar. I'm not saying it's him, but it very well could be because it happened at around the same time frame. And I heard that he might have had a home up here.
She said he brought me here from my country. And I said, wow. I said to her, She said, I feel happy he's rich. So I said to her, why don't we go shopping tomorrow?
It sounds like that you were there, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. It was a long time ago, but
I don't know what's going on with my computer right now, but I do want to go. Hold on here.
it was a swingers sex party. There were all sorts.
So this here is. I just want to do this really quick, and I'll go back to that in a second. So this is basically Gilgo Beach here, and this whole. I'm going to do this here. So this whole. Whoops, went too far. So this is the Atlantic Ocean here, and this is Gilgo Beach here. The problem is this area here, all of this area here got hit really hard. Hurricane Sandy, and then I'm pretty sure it was Tropical Storm Irene. I may have that backwards, but I cover a lot of these hurricanes, and I'm technically a storm chaser, but this area here got hit really, really hard with inundating 9-foot waves here back. So I'm just wondering if some of these bodies here that were here got disturbed by some of these storms. I mean, even if you get a good nor'easter here, this area gets hit, pummeled, literally, by just storm surge. So there may have been more bodies down there at the time, but I wouldn't. It's possible. All right, so let's go back to the video here. And I don't know why this thing's jumping like that, but could be my computer.
Did you get a good look at Rex Heuermann, and did you witness him?
I mean, look at this place. I mean, I'm not the cleanest person in the world, but I don't think I'd be able to live here.
In any kind of behavior? Did you see him engage in any sex during that party?
It wasn't a lot of people. It was me and my boyfriend and Rex and Karen and his wife and Isa. That was it. He smirks a lot. That I noticed. He really does smirk a lot. He rarely laughs, but he smirks a lot.
Did you notice him engaging? And when you said Karen, I should just tell our viewers, I think you mean Karen Vergata. She was a murder victim known as Jane Doe number 7.
Yes.
And if I know your story correctly, Lorraine, when you were leaving with your boyfriend,
Yes.
you looked up in the window and you saw Karen Vergata, someone you believe is Karen Vergata, the woman you brought to the party who was staying behind. You saw her up in the window, and you said you looked into.
So Irene, I think, Hurricane Irene was in 2011, and I did a live on this earlier this year, and then Sandy was in 2012.
To her eyes and thought she looked frightened.
She looked scared. So I told him, I said, you said you spoke to her and she wants to stay because she's sleepy and hungry. He said, yes, she wants to stay.
This is just so sad, this poor kid. Oh my God.
I said, okay, so why is she running outside? Now she's running outside. And he said, oh, you just watching everything. They're probably playing a game. Let's go home. And we left.
I mean, this guy, Rex Heuermann, too, he's a big guy. I mean, these victims probably didn't have much of a chance. I mean, he's a big guy.
Left her there. And that's why I'm doing this, because I feel some sense of responsibility because we left her.
Thank you for
So I just wanted to play that. That's just you know, there seems to be a lot of these people coming out here. Let me play a little bit of this here, then I'll get out of here.
For a very long time. Gilgo Beach became the.
See, these beaches, like, these are really beautiful beaches down here. There's a lot of money here. But at night down here, because there's no lights here, it's pitch black. You can't see anything.
Gilgo serial killer.
That area is very similar to like Cape Cod. The only difference is it's about 100 miles south, so the waters get warmer and warmer and warmer as you go south.
That they think they're on the hunt for, and it goes on forever. And on day one, the very first time, the top cop at the time uttered the words serial killer. And right there, I mean, you knew this was a momentous story, and this was going to be one that we're going to be dealing with for a very long time. Gilgo Beach became the Gilgo serial killer. But Gilgo Beach actually was only kind of near where this happened. It was sort of the closest small village, but it really gave Gilgo Beach as a community a really terrifying name. There are people who do live there year round, and now they're known around the world as this like town of horrors.
In a place like this, people say, hey, do you have a dozen eggs, because I can't get to the store because they closed the Ocean Parkway again.
Such is life for the handful of people who call Gilgo Beach home. Many of them moved here decades ago for the anonymity, only to see their village become an international symbol of evil.
I have to tell you, I thought how astonishing that they brought up Gilgo Beach. It used to be that no one had any idea where I lived, and now everybody says, oh, I know Gilgo Beach, it's that spot.
It really is. It's the Long Island serial killer, or the Ocean Parkway serial killer case. Gilgo Beach, it just sort of became the shorthand for this.
It's a little bit unnerving. I'm hoping that they don't find anything else.
This was another one of those cases, though, where when it happened, I remember when this case, because I'm here on the East Coast, so you thought this case was going to be solved within the first couple of months. I mean, you got a guy dumping people around here. It's going to be something. If it's not the mob, it's somebody wacko. But again, you know, years later.
And obviously, I'm hoping that they find whoever did this very quickly.
It was clear that there was nothing else that anyone cared about on Long Island for, I don't know, more than a year. It was the story we came back to. It was the location that we kept, you know, standing in the wind at all times of the year as there were new developments with this story.
You start to get concerned
It gets really cold down there too in the winter.
about this wonderful area that we live in. Maybe it is somebody who could live in this area, and that you really have to be a little bit more careful.
The search continues for Shannon Gilbert, the missing prostitute whose disappearance led to all these discoveries in the first place.
No one knew anything about Shannon Gilbert. None of us had ever heard of her.
As for the missing woman they were looking for in the first place, she is 20.
I mean, love him or hate him, the guy Johnny Ray really kept this case at least somewhat in the news. You know, he, like I said, like him or hate him, he, I don't even think he's getting paid for what he's doing, but for Shannon Gilbert, I mean, he's been front and center with this thing. He's a little wacko, but, you know, I do respect him for what he's done in this case here, because if, you know, it wasn't for people like that, then this case would have really been pushed under the rug here.
24-year-old Shannon Gilbert.
Gilbert was a 24-year-old prostitute who investigators say was last seen in May.
Shannon Gilbert's family tonight telling Eyewitness News she was last seen in the area where those bodies were discovered.
Who is believed to have sold herself for sex on Craigslist. Police say they have no idea, quite frankly, if she might be one of the bodies they found.
If you listen to that phone call, one of the eeriest things you'll probably ever listen to. She definitely was in fear for her life. Sure.
It could be weeks or months before we identify the 4 people that were found over the last few days.
She had disappeared 6 months earlier, and the police didn't do much with it. And it sort of was festering in their missing persons division or wherever it was. It was not something that they'd ever told us about. We all became acquainted with Shannon Gilbert very quickly when the police explained how they found these bodies, that a police officer and his dog were looking in the area that Shannon Gilbert was known to have disappeared.
A cadaver dog.
All right, so if you want to watch this is a pretty good watch. This is the documentary on the from the beginning of the case till now. I think I got that down here in the chat. But I've been here an hour and 40 minutes, so I'm going to get the hell out of here. I want to thank everybody for coming in. Like I said, next Friday night, I think I'm going to get into the Maine South unalivings there again. Go over the unalivings there. I also am going to go up to Woodsville, New Hampshire, really soon because I want to redrive from Amherst, Massachusetts, where Mara Murray left. It's February now, so I want to take the drive from Amherst, Massachusetts, all the way up to Woodsville, New Hampshire, where she supposedly went missing years ago. You don't know about Mara Murray? Go ahead and check that story out. She went missing up here, but I want to take that drive and go by that accident scene in February when it's like it was back when she got into that accident there. So we're going to be doing that. Other than that, I want to thank everybody for coming in. Thank you, Lynn. It's always good to see you here. Lynn's awesome. Marv was in here, of course. Marv was great. Ms. Persevere, thank you for coming in. Marv's new channel is Beyond the Evidence there. I was here, of course. Jinx is awesome. Jinx is good people for sure. Frosty was in here. Frosty is great. He's got a channel too. Frosty, I can probably find his channel somewhere. Great guy. Who else was in here? Dean Johnson was in here. Tom James. Dean Johnson's, he wanted to know, he was in Rick Snae's live tonight. Rick Snae's great too. Who else was in here? I think that's it. I'm probably going to forget somebody like I always do. Heather Brown was in here. Heather's great. I think that's it. I'm just scrolling through to see if I forget somebody here. But everybody stay safe this weekend. I hope everybody's well. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's enough. So everybody have a great weekend. I'm going to play my outro and I'm going to get the freaking hell out of here. But everybody have a great weekend. Thank you.